What is good, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's going on with Neo, Tesla Spine, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I want to break down what happened with Berkshire Hathaway's earnings as we got some more insights about that, what the news is saying about Neo, and you should be watching for as time progresses. But before I begin to detail all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500 into the account, you are guaranteed 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 free stocks. This offer ends in just about 4 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, now let's break down what's happening to NEO. NEO is down 7.69% for the day as we got some bad news. The news has been saying that JP Morgan Chase gave NEO a sell rating, saying it's going to likely underperform relative to the market, and that's going to be approaching $5. That's their price target. They downgraded NEO. Ever since that news came out, NEO has been sinking like a rock. And unfortunately, it's on a big downtrend, and this may continue, especially as the market is showing some weakness. So I'm going to break down some things about the market real quick before I talk about NEO. Tomorrow is going to be Monday, February 26th, and we have the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index report coming out at 10:30 a.m. Watch and see what volatility that causes. Then at 11:30 a. excuse me, 11:30 a.m. we have some bill auctions and notes auctions coming out. Besides that, all the data is going to be very minor, so there's not really a whole lot going on. But for Tuesday, do not forget that we have more data coming out from the house price report and things like that. We'll just have to see how it goes. For now, I just want to break down how things are looking. All the data is very, very minor. For earnings, as far as earnings go, I just want to mention that before the market opens tomorrow, we have Domino's. We're probably going to get more insights on these different reports. We just had Berkshire Hathaway announce some important things. I want to talk about that. And then later on, don't forget that for Tuesday, we have like AutoZone and a bunch of retail. Wednesday, we just have more retail. We have more stocks which are watched by retail and played by them, like Marathon, AMC, Salesforce, and such for Wednesday. And everything else is very minor except for like Dell. I think that this is going to be a kind of like a more quiet week for earnings. There's not too much crazy stuff like Nvidia's earnings coming out. We'll just have to see how it goes. As far as Neo goes, I do want to call out that Neo is showing some very, very nice growth in terms of fundamentals and improvements, but it's also heavily impacted by some more pieces of news, such as what's happening with earnings and stuff. So never forget about that. Don't forget about the external factors. So another factor, I'm going to talk about this quick before I talk about Neo. Berkshire Hathaway announced its earnings. They're up 28% in the fourth quarter, but the cash pile is surging to a record high, which is making some investors a little bit apprehensive. But besides that, we're looking at record revenue growth, very, very strong looking reports. On top of this, you can't forget about how where they're growing is looking pretty good thus far. For the full year, 2023, the operating earnings was up about $37 billion, up 17% to the prior year, and they held about $167 billion in cash. They beat on a lot of expectations in a way. They are showing lots and lots of great growth, and they're continuing to surge as we're seeing different sectors doing well, from insurance, underwriting, not to mention other things like that. So far, so good. A couple of things to take away from this is that, and this is what's making the most headlines, what most people are a little concerned about, and that is the fact that they're hoarding lots and lots of cash, record high amounts of cash, and that's very, very important. There's also been a lot of talk about how this could be a sign of fear or uncertainty about the markets. Many people think that it's an excessive. The amount of cash and treasury holdings is far in excess of what conventional wisdom deems necessary, according to Buffett. So we will see. They didn't really tell us anything that this means something bad is going to happen or this and that. They did mention that they did something similar during the 2008 financial crisis, but they didn't really make any comments about whether or not this is significant or it has to do with anything else like that. They're not really giving us enough information for me to truly say that they're expecting a crash or anything like that. We can't make that claim. But they are piling up on cash, so just be a little bit careful. We did see utilities and railroads kind of like disappoint. They declined about 40% in terms of energy earnings. So that's not surprising for this year. That is what would have been expected. Besides that, I mean, I would say earnings are still pretty good in terms of their overall performance, in terms of revenue, and we'll see how it goes for them moving forward. So not too bad. As far as NEO goes, the 11th power swap station in Germany was open today. The new PSS in the southern area, right, that's very, very important in a part of Germany, offers very, very nice connections, very, very good for Eastern Germany, and good connections to like Berlin and such. So that's good news for NEO. more excitement, more and more swap stations in Germany is bullish for the long term. For this right here, there's been some talk about this humanoid robot working on NIO's EV assembly line. That's something very, very cool, but this isn't officially out yet or anything like that. It's piloting a humanoid robot on its EV assembly line at one of its factories, but they're still working on this. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's perfect quite yet, but it's going to be looking at some like quality inspections, locked doors, and stuff like that. It hasn't said anything publicly about it, but if anything, another company is basically applying these robots for EV assembly, and this is something that Neo could be open to in the future. They released a video, but this doesn't guarantee anything about it, whether or not it's going to guarantee things. And we'll see how things go moving forward. But this is actually pretty cool with this being used. We'll see what functions this has moving forward. There's just nothing confirmed yet for me to say it. But it's just a cool viral video that's come out. So it's cool stuff. They can assist here and there with small things, but as time goes on, I believe that their role is going to become a lot more significant. But we'll see what the humanoid robots end up doing, how they develop, how this benefits Neo. There's also some talk coming out right here that Neo's swap station in Denmark has begun offering frequency regulations services to the power grid. That's once again very useful because the service barely affects the battery swap station's ability to provide the service to car owners, with one station bringing in revenue in the tens of thousands of euros a year. So, with that being said, the newest swap station in Denmark has been offering, lots of regulation services on the grid and for small steps for Neo Power in Europe. So that's going to be good for their business swap model. And they're going to be working on constructions of new power systems for the grid's ability to use more power. That's important news because this is going to give them more necessary infrastructure to be able to use these swap stations. So that's interesting so far, and that's something I saw thus far. But I just want to note that a lot of these headlines, a lot of this news is not going to affect Neo that much, at least for like the immediate term. This is just like some of the headlines that just came out. Now I just want to focus on something a little bit different. When it comes to Neo's volume, we fell on 75 million in volume, well above average. Short volume went up to about 64%. And also, JP Morgan, they gave Neo an underweight rating. I was talking about that. Price price ratio is dropping to new lows because Neo is looking very weak. On top of this, we tend to be green only about 50 or 49.5% of the time on Mondays. But that's it for now. So we'll see how things go. I just want to mention that as far as Neo goes, we're on a downtrend right now. We're still looking very weak, and there's no true sign of this bouncing. This looks to me like it's going to be retesting 5.5, eventually coming down to 5.25, maybe even lower than that. If we lose that, then $5 is going to be our next target. Unfortunately, it's on a big downtrend. We have a head and shoulders like structure, and it looks like it could come all the way back down towards 5.25, if not $5 flat. It looks bearish as a result of the bad news thanks to JP Morgan, and the share price is still slowing down. As far as SPY goes, I do see this retracing a little bit more. I think 505 to 506 could be tested. 505 might be tested, and we'll have to see if we bounce off that. If not, around 503, we should be getting a bounce. So one of those levels I do anticipate is going to try to rebound, but look for it to come down just a little bit more, and we'll see how it reacts to those levels. For Tesla, it's looking a little bit weaker because it has this big downtrend. It's continuing to sink into after hours, and we're going to be watching to see how well it holds around 192 flat. It's actually a little bit below that, so I could be looking for a move back down towards 189, if not 188. We'll see if buyers defend Tesla around there. Otherwise, it is looking a little bit more bearish, so just be a little bit careful. For a couple more, Apple has some potential. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders like structure that's forming. But here's the thing: there's no guarantee it's going to play out. Firstly, secondly, we're about to get a bearish cross in the PPO 4 hour. There's a chance that Apple could actually sink lower. We'll see if it holds 181.36. If it fails to hold that 180 is coming, it has to hold that for this thing to bounce. If we lose 180, it's going to invalidate the inverse head and shoulders and turn a lot more bearish. So just be very careful. But I do anticipate a little bit more dropping for Apple to at least 181.36, and we'll see if we bounce or not. The triple Q to me looks like it's going to be testing 434. I do expect that. I think it's very likely. A little drop is coming, and we'll see if we bounce off 434 or 432. I do think it's going to make an attempt to bounce at one of those levels, unless some bad news comes out. But I think that we're going to retrace a little bit more, so be prepared for that on the triple Q, and we'll see how this affects us. For NVIDIA, it's essentially the same thing. I do see NVIDIA retracing a little bit. I think that Nvidia is going to likely retest 775. If that fails us, we could be on our way all the way down to 758 before we try to bounce. So just be very careful. Nvidia is showing some weakness right now. It did pump more. It's on an uptrend, so it's not the end of the world. It's still on a big uptrend, but even if we're on this uptrend, right, there have been periods where it came down temporarily before it continued higher. So it might be on a temporary fall. So watch 775. If we lose that on Nvidia, we could be coming all the way down to 758. It looks a little weak, so just be careful. This could drag the QQQ down just temporarily. We'll have to see how things go. With that being said, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. Enjoy your Sunday, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Thank you again, and peace out.